In this lecture, I'm briefly going to show you how we can read in data from databases, and databases are a collection of data tables. So basically, if we have a lot of related data, instead of having hundreds of CSVs, we can just put them in a database. And so I'll just write this down. Database, it's a collection of data tables, and what we have to do with databases is that we query the databases to obtain the individual tables, and then we essentially work with that. So in this course, we are not going to cover databases. We are just going to learn to read in to access a database, an SQLite database. Now SQLite is a very common database format. We will learn to access these and see how we can obtain some of the tabular data in the form of a pandas data frame, which we may later on work with. So these are the data that we will work with. So it is, our data are stored in the folder IPL, and it pertains to the data relating to the different parameters of the Indian Premier League cricket. So basically, Indian Premier League cricket are a kind of cricket matches, and we have a number of professional or semi-professional teams that compete, and they are hugely popular, especially in South Asia. So all the data, they are stored in something known as the database.sqlite, and this is an SQLite file, and as you can see, it's quite a big file. So basically, SQLite is a database format, and we can even have other database formats, but let's just work with SQLite to begin with. And now we will see how we can access some of these data. So first thing we need to do is import SQLite 3, which is, this is an inbuilt package within Python, and then we are going to try to connect to this database, and we are going to say con, the variable we will use to connect, SQLite3.connect IPL/database.SQLite. So this is basically, we have everything in IPL database.SQLite, it's done, and ka is a con.cursor. So basically, this is going to be our, we need to specify this in order to start working with the databases. So the first thing we would like to do is to list the tables present in the SQLite database, because we do need to know what tables we have in there before we start doing anything with that. So res is equal to con.execute, and we are going to put in a query, select name from SQLite master where type table. So depending on whatever database you have, you can just put in this code directly, and what it will do is, on the connection, it will execute and select all the tables, and then for name in res, print name. So what it is going to do is that it will iterate through the variable res, and then it will print the names of all the tables, and you can see these are all the tables located in this particular database as database.sqlite. So we have a table player, extra run, bowling style, country, season, city, win by, and so here. So now you can see why we have databases. I mean, it would be very chaotic to store all of these individual CSVs, store them as individual CSVs. So that is why we have a database. So no, if I suppose we have a table called city, and I want to list the first 5 records from the table city, for that I will say cur.execute select star from city limit 5. So what it will do is that from city it will select the first 5 rows, and it doesn't show me anything. So actually, let's just make it 7, and I'll run the code. And in order to obtain the results, we must say results cur.fetch all print results, and as you can see, the results have been printed in the form of a tuple, and tuple are a kind of a Python data structure, and in case you're not acquainted with tuples, don't worry. Tuples are quite painful to work with, but this is how we can obtain some of the information present within a table. But now what we really want is that we should be able to read in these data as a data frame, and for that we are going to say import pandas as PD, And now I'm going to run a query, and I'm going to focus on the table called match. So if you see somewhere here, we have a table called match, and here I'm going to say select with the capital star from match. So basically we want to select all the data from the table match, and then we are going to say df pd dot read SQL query.con. So basically we are going to pass the argument query, and we are also going to pass the argument for connection. This is the connection that we created with this SQLite table. And then once we do that, we say df.head, and this is match ID, team 1, team 2, match date, season ID, venue ID, so on. So now we have been able to read in all of the data from the match table into a data frame format. And indeed, a data frame format is something we can work with far more easily. And let's try to just change this. Let's just see what I get this time round. So as you can see, this is the city information that I obtained previously in the form of tuples, but now in this case we have city ID, city name, and country ID. So you can see city ID 1, Bangalore is the city name, country ID 1, it is in India, and then we have 2, city ID 2, Chandigarh, 1, again the country is in India, and so on. And we can even look at the tail of these data. Let us see. So it seems that we have everything in India except for Abu Dhabi, which is in United Arab Emirates. So in this case, when we obtained these data, we ended up obtaining them as a tuple, but when we use pt.read SQL query, then we can obtain the same data as a data frame, which we can work with and carry out further processing on these pandas data frame tables. And in the next section, indeed, we are going to cover some of the basic data cleaning and wrangling techniques which we can apply on these tables.